Lederman, you're kind of in the process of building a new model together with EuroCCP. I mean, how's that going to work exactly?
Well, I think it's important to remember as people talk about regulating this, that MiFID didn't mandate that commercial people set up new MTFs. It created an environment where that was possible, and people recognized a commercial opportunity and went ahead and did it. And I think if you look at the world of clearing, if you had told people who were active in the European trading community 3 years ago that we would have pan-European clearing solutions at a tenth the economics of the current solutions in the various silos and market by market, they would have said, not possible. But if you look at what EuroCCP have done, if you look at what EMCF have done, to be fair, they did what would apparently or would have seemed impossible, and they've created a pan-European clearing solution, each of them. They've done it with compelling economics, and I think that you're going to see this sort of thing playing out over time. So, yes, today we have, at Turquoise, we've specifically worked with EuroCCP, but we fully expect over time that there will be other clearing providers involved in what we do, and we're looking at what SWIFT is doing, for example, in terms of a sort of meta layer on top of all of this. So I think it will play out, and I completely agree that it will be driven by commercial forces. It will be what the users of these platforms demand. And moreover, if you look at the exchanges, I would expect in the very near future for exchanges to be knocking at the door, the incumbent exchanges to be knocking at the door of EMCF and EuroCCP and saying, could we please hook up because our members demand it.
David, are you going to be doing that?
I think.
President Alberto's not here.
Well, yeah, I actually like to come back to airline comments in a second, but
sure. I think before I come to that, I think we hit the nail on the head when we looked at this is the regulation, this is the SRO that's being introduced on a voluntary basis, but it has to work on a commercial basis. And I think we just need to check whether what the code started with is actually capable of being completed on a commercial terms as opposed to regulatory and political goodwill.
I think. Okay. I think you can only rely so much on so-called market forces because you could say that the exchange vertical model is a result of market forces. Yeah. It is, I think, a very unique situation when EuroCCP was appointed by Turquoise at the time when Turquoise was still a project before incorporation. There was complete synchronization of the owners and the trading firms' interests in appointing a clearing solution that will deliver what the trading firm wants as well as what the platform wants. Once the decision is made, all right, to appoint a primary CCP, then the Code of Conduct allows other CCPs to request for interoperability. The peculiar thing about the clearing industry is that it is the trading firms that pay, but the platform that makes the appointment. In the case of Turquoise, it was not only on the cost that EuroCCP won the business, but also on the governance model, because we are industry-owned and we are industry-governed. The trading firms that pay the bills does not necessarily own the platforms, the other platforms. So I don't think that market forces would necessarily deliver the desired result because the platforms have their own commercial interests. And you could well see the MTF market going vertical. If some MTFs have an equity interest or a financial interest in the CCP that they appoint, that is going to be closed to other CCPs.
Yeah. And I think that the banks need to be aware if that's the way to go, there are associated costs with that. Because ultimately, people will have to hook up to all these entrants and new entrants. You will have different CCPs with different default funds, different restructures, and therefore the allocation of capital is not going to be as efficient as if you, as an investment bank ABC, could actually, in fact, choose to select, say, EMCF or EuroCCP for all of your markets. And that's what interoperability would create. The way that the market is moving right now is in fact creating all these vertical silos which are inefficient.
Alberto, surely we have a time to market issue here. You know, the back offices of the large investment banks and the universal banks are set up against the current infrastructure. The cost associated with having one CCP for all markets and a settlement agent for all markets is an enormous investment in-house as well as for the market. And I think this meta layer is what's going to happen. It's going to be a competitive layer in the middle where people like ourselves are going to put in general clearing member services. We're going to look to net margin. We're not there yet. We're going to look to net settlement. So that same German trade that has then gone to 3 or 4 execution and 3 or 4 clearings put back together in one settlement instruction, because that's the way the competitive market will drive suppliers to add value to their client base. And I just see interoperability. The CSDs talked about it for 10 years. We got nowhere. CCPs are talking about it, but the commercial pressures of each back office in the investment banks and in the universal banks at the moment is just not there to wait for 2 years and change all their infrastructure as well as invest in the market infrastructure. So it's that meta layer that's got to happen, and it's got to happen fast. And you'll see more of that between the clearance and custody banks competing in that GCM space.
Let's bring in Hirander, because Charles is using Fortis for its clearing. So
well, EMCF, European Multilateral Clearing Facility, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Fortis Bank. And it's safe to say here, at the start.
But it seems to back up a little bit of what Tom's saying there. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I agree with Tom to a degree, because when we looked at the process, when we embarked upon the project to create Chi-X at the back end of 2005, the beginning of 2006, in many ways, some of the existing CCPs were our natural partners, because what we really didn't want to do was reinvent the wheel. So, we looked out there for potential solutions, and we spoke to all the traditional CCPs. To connect to all of them, it would have cost a lot in terms of connectivity, the time to market, the delivery in terms of the project. There wasn't an appetite on the other side as well, because we were being dismissed as just another upstart that would fail at that time. And so we had a lot of doors closed on us. And so we thought, okay, what does a CCP do? And I'm being simplistic here, so Alberto, Diana, I hope you're not offended, but effectively it manages your intraday risk. It facilitates clearing and onward settlement, and obviously netting at clearing level as well. And we thought the wholesale markets already do that today, and therefore we went down the wholesale market route to try and find a market-driven solution. Our agreement was non-exclusive from the outset, and still is with EMCF, just as Eli's mentioned, it is with Turquoise. So we do want to see interoperability there and a level of horizontal integration.
I suppose the point to be made would be that the markets are in rather bad odour at the moment, aren't they, in terms of their capacity for handling risks successfully? Alberto, would you be sort of the mind that maybe this is too precious to be trusted entirely to banks in the market?
Well, no, I think that even in the current situation, the banks and the GCMs in general perform a very, very important and valuable role in terms of credit management. I wouldn't say that banks can't be trusted. I think the banks have played a very important role, and they will still keep playing a very important role in that space.
What about a bank owning a CCP?
I think it's really for the market to say, but ultimately, if you look at a CCP like LCH.Clearnet, has a very clear structure of default fund, of initial margins, variation margin, insurance, and capital. And we're also, by the way, owned by the market for about 73%. You look at a bank owning a CCP, and you got to ask yourself the question whether there is a model that can really be pushed through other classes of assets. Because a Fortis Bank, I think their stock went down quite a lot over the last few months. So some people might have some issues with paying effectively margins to another credit institution. So in that respect, I see your point. However, again, in a different space, in terms of managing the credit risk as GCMs, the banks have proved to be making a very effective job.
Yeah, we're still getting sort of a lot of pockets of resistance, aren't we, to a lot of these moves? And when we move into the settlement space, Diane, Turquoise and EuroCCP have not been allowed to, and Chi-X have not been allowed to settle in Italy. I mean, how much of and Spain too, I think. I mean, how much of a problem is that?
I think the two countries are quite different in the nature of the problem that we are encountering. In Italy is a matter of denying the resources that will allow our account to be activated. Of course, if our account cannot activate, we cannot settle, and Turquoise cannot trade. That is one kind of problem. It's a management decision not to give resources to us to enable us to settle. In the Spain situation, it is a long-held market practice with the registration number problem. So that is not exactly the same nature. We have to solve what is a market practice that is an impediment to multilateral trading platforms.